tax registration tile, which is allowing you to register. So you just have to click on the registration bar, and as we mentioned, it would repopulate the information from your existing VAT, in this case, to the CT tile. In this case, we don't have a registered excise. So this is the page, the briefing of when you're about to fill in the form. It has the tutorials, the required documents, the information of the service details, the eligibility criteria if you're eligible to register for CT, the service steps, the FAQs that are also available for your ease, and you may now confirm that you've read the same and you're about to start the application for registering for CT. So this is the first page, which is the corporate tasks registration page for the entity details. Now you would notice the entity type is faded. You won't be able to change that, similar to that of the VAT amendments usually. So the rest could be amendable. You could edit the same, you could update the same in case if the information is incorrect or invalid or not updated. Just select United Arab Emirates, let's say. I will just select the quarter of the period in which we asked you earlier for your fiscal year. Just click on the next step and we'll move on to the identification details of the main license details. So this part is the trade licensing authority. This is the business activity details. These are the actions in which you may add the business activity, let's say. And here is where you would add in the industry. There's a drop-down menu over there. There's the main group, there's a subgroup, there's the activity, and you can just simply add the activity under. As you just scroll down a bit, you would notice that, let's say this is a natural person, this is the name of the owner, you can edit their details, you can edit their name, the expiry date of their Emirates ID, and just click on update so that it updates the same. As you scroll down a bit further, you would notice the branches, if you have any branches in the UAE, the trade licenses of the branches. You have the names, the trade license names, the business activity details. Again, you can update the same under the actions bar. We'll just go on ahead right now. Okay, here is the contact details where you could amend your contact detail, which is very vital as well for us to keep in touch with you. So your mobile number, just make sure that it's all up to date, it's the right number, the person who's in charge and who's supposed to receive the calls. The email ID, the PO box if you may have, which is optional, of course. And once you're done with this stage, you just click on the next step. And here we have the authorized signatory page, where you can update the authorized signatory, the name in English, the name in Arabic, the email ID. You can just click on the actions as well if you want to update the same. They're pretty much all the same. It's the same steps. So we'll just put in a designation. Let's just give it a manager. Let's say for the job profile or the job position. And then here's all of the details that you just need to verify. A memorandum of association or a power of attorney is the most vital document that you would need to attach, of course, when it comes to an authorized signatory. It has to be attested by the court or the public prosecution, notary department, sorry. And the date on which the power has been given, you can update the information there, and then you would upload the document itself. Please make sure you do so, because this is a mandatory field. And then you can just click on next step. Here we are. And then the next step again. Now this is the final stage where you would review and declare the entire application. It's easier for you to just edit from the tabs right at the bottom, top right, sorry. So this is exactly all the sections we've just filled. In case if you notice that there is anything missing or you've put in a wrong information, it's easier for you to update it in a full screen mode. So once you're done, you just declare the same and you can click on submit. The application would be submitted. Here's where you can save it as a draft in case if you wish to save it for another time. Now once we submitted it, you would notice that the application has been submitted successfully. It's pending for approval. Now, this does not mean it is approved, of course. This has gone in to the FTA for us to review. The registration department will be reviewing your application. Now, you would notice here the entity name is appearing, the applicant's name, the reference number for you to follow up upon for future references if you need to follow up on the same, the submission date and time as well. Similar to that of the VAT and the excise, CT requires, of course, 20 working days for us to review your application and get back to you. Again, the analyst who's working on the CT application might resubmit it back to you for further information, for further documents to edit the same, or if not, they would simply approve the application. So we're done with the video. And we'll just go about the key takeaways from the entire presentation. So we'll just summarize the key takeaways from this session that we've just provided you with. As you've seen, the CT registration information will be pre-populated on the basis of, as we mentioned, the VAT or the excise details that have already been available in the FTA's Emirate Tax Dashboard, which we've just seen in the video that we've shown. So upon submission of the registration, you are required to make sure that your VAT or excise details are updated in the Emirate Tax profile for it to pre-populate accordingly. So where the VAT details are not, let's say, updated, the following documents should be ready before starting the registration process and will be required to update documents where these are, let's say, expired or whatever happened. So these include the valid trade licenses, the business license details, the authorized signatory's passport and Emirate ID if they are residents in the UAE. Proof of authorization of the authorized signatory, as we mentioned, either the POA or the MOA. Please also note that once the registration is completed, as I mentioned, the FTA will require time in order to review the submitted application, which is 20 business days. The FTA may require, as we mentioned, additional information in order to process your application further. So now once your application has been approved, you will be notified by an email, which is your registered email, and a CT registration number will then be issued to you. So as we mentioned earlier, we're going to move into the question bank where my colleague Mr. Faisal will help me with posing several questions that we have already prepared for you. These are most of the questions we've already received prior from taxpayers, and we've taken it into consideration, and hopefully this will answer to most of the questions you've already just asked. Mr. Faisal, if you please.
Hello again, our dear taxpayers. We are going to start our Q&A session with some important questions, and Amal is going to answer it. So the first question is, what is the basis for selecting the entities for the early registration?
So the entities are selected on the basis of various criteria, including whether the registration details are already available with the FTA and on the basis of any prior interactions with the FTA. So the FTA has grouped taxpayers and staggered those who have been invited to register early, such as yourself.
And all the entities register now?
Currently, only joint stock companies and limited liability companies can register. So CT registration will be available to all entities starting from June 2023.
So do we need to register separately from the branches?
So for UAE branches of the UAE juridical person, they are not required to separately register or file for UAE CT, similar to that in VAT. So branches are not separate legal persons from the head entity and therefore do not need to register separately. But the details of the branches need to be included in the registration application of the head entity VAT amendment if happened.
And my next question is, what happens if the existing registration data is outdated?
For that, Mr. Faisal, the applicants who are VAT registered, the system will pre-populate certain data fields with existing information, such as the owners, the authorized signatory, the first and last names in both Arabic and in English. So this information will be validated and, where necessary, updated for CT and VAT purposes.
And you have mentioned earlier the functionalities. When will these become available?
So over the course of the coming year, the various functionalities of the system will become available upon deployment.
Is the time frame for the registration approval the same as for VAT registration?
So the time frame for registration approval will be defined by Cabinet's decision.
And here I'm going to just merge 2 points in my question. I see the tax group type. Will we go through this tax group? This tax group type, if we are registering for a CT group, and how can I register in a tax group?
So for those 2 questions regarding the group, Mr. Faisal, no, the tax group tile that you have seen was that for the VAT group registration instead. So for CT group registration, UAE companies will have to make an application to the FTA to form a tax group and be treated as a single taxable person. Information on the process for applying to form a tax group will be shared at a later stage. However, all companies will be required, as we mentioned earlier, to register separately, unlike VAT. So legal entities that wish to form a corporate tax group are required to register individually first, and then may apply to form a corporate tax group at a later date.
And my last question to you, Amal, when will CT registration functionality be available to the taxpayers?
So the early registration period is available, as we mentioned, from January 2023 to May 2023. For certain categories of companies and businesses operating in the UAE. So those selected taxpayers will be receiving invitations from the FTA by email or either by SMS, probably both, permitting them to register via the Eurotax platform. Now, following this initial phase, the FTA will announce at a later date when registration will be open for other companies and businesses, plus when tax agents will be able to register businesses. The FTA will make sure to give ample time for companies and businesses to apply for registration and meet their legal obligations. So when registration opens, the priority will be given to companies and businesses that have a financial year starting on or after the 1st of June 2020.
Thank you, Amal. This is all the questions that I have, and thank you all for participating and attending our session today. Please scan the QR code in order to provide us your feedback, and thank you all.
Thank you again. We do hope that you've used the poll that we've mentioned earlier. It would help us understand your fiscal years. Most of your chats where you've mentioned that there was a delay in your CT registration, please make sure that you have submitted the CT registration. We will be liaising with the registration department to ensure that they've looked at your applications. Again, it takes 20 working days to do so. Meanwhile, all of your questions, especially in the Q&A chat, will be answered. Please keep checking in our FAQs available on our website for CT purposes, as we will be answering any questions that are newly asked. You may even add a question there, but most of your questions are pretty much all already available. So please keep visiting that, and we hope that it will be easier for you to register right now after the demo we've provided you with. We thank you again for joining. Thank you, Mr. Faisal, and we wish you a pleasant day.